Our last topic for the semester is taking a look at what can we do with some of the things that we have learned and explored and considered and written about and been thoughtful about. And so you did an activity that was kind of having you choose true, false on a bunch of statements. And I know those statements in some ways, you're like, oh, what does this have to do with anything? Well, it's getting at kind of motivation and what gets people to want to create a different world. So I want to expand on that. We're going to go through them together. So the first thing you had to decide which was true or false is the people shall rule. So let me tell you, because especially this is incredibly general, right? Um, Depending on if you said true or false, do the people, because I'm going to change that. Do the people rule? Because the people shall rule, I believe means like shall means should, right? Yeah. So this is saying the people should rule. So you said either true, they do, or they should rather, or they don't. But I will then say again, do they? And if you're like, no, they don't, well, then who does? A lot of times people say politicians, and it's like, well, how do they get there? They were voted in by the people. Does that mean the people shall rule? And everybody's kind of like, meh. A lot of times people will say money, and maybe ultimately that's what it is. The people shall rule is actually, it's a community organizing principle. The whole premise is if you are a trained community organizer, you're going into a community to do work and help out. You don't come in going, let's do this, we got to do that. And you're like, you come in, you sit down, you're quiet, you listen. You let the people dictate your agenda, right? Let them tell you what they need. That's what it means by the people shall rule. That's where it came from, but it kind of gets us to think about, do we? Should we? Who does? How does that all work? The next thing you had to decide, true or false, if you're not fighting for what you want, you do not want it enough. Please stand by. I'm going to be super I'm going to go through the different words in this to kind of change it around and see what you think. So again, some of you might have said true, some of you might have said false. Some of you might have said false because you're making the realization, you're kind of bringing privilege back into our conversation, right? That maybe you can't, maybe you don't have the opportunity, maybe you don't have the resources to fight. But let's play around with this a little bit. If you're not fighting for what you need, you do not need it enough. Can you see how that shows kind of societal privilege more in that statement? So does that change it from your original answer? Keep going. If you're not working, trying, talking, you know what I mean? Is the word fighting, should it be fighting? Because what do you think of when you hear fighting? Like yelling, right? Or I'm not advocating for this, but like, I don't know, punching somebody in the nose or something, like fighting. That energy of like, this is not enough. So should that be the word that it is? Or if you're not working towards something that you need, you do not need it enough. Can you see how this kind of really flips it around and gets you thinking about? Well, hopefully it kind of gets you thinking about what would you fight for? So let's keep going on this. If you're not fighting for what others need, you don't want it enough. If we are not all taking the opportunities and the resources that we have to make a difference in others' lives, do we care? I mean, we can say we care. And please know that I am not sitting here going, you people who are apathetic. No, 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 no. Not at all. We all struggle with this. We're all overwhelmed. We're all being pulled in a million directions. But there are so many people that need so many things desperately. When we hear the ways that gender is being treated in our society, when we hear somebody say something disparaging, when we hear somebody say even something stereotypical that now you kind of bristle at because you think it's problematic. If you're not fighting for what others need, you do not want it enough. What do you think? Okay, next one. Nobody's going to come to the meeting unless they have a reason to come to the meeting. Again, a very open statement. So you're like, why are you asking this? Well, is it true or false? It's very funny. I mean, most of the time people say it's true. Sometimes people say it's false. And I'm like, oh, okay, why? And they're like, well, what if you have like a meeting for work? I was like, well, that's your reason, right? Like you have a meeting that you have no reason to go to. You're walking along campus, there's some signs. You have no reason to go to this. But they're inviting you in. And so let's think about this. Think about you're the person organizing this meeting. How do you get people to come? How do you get people to join in? When I usually ask this question in on-campus classes, the answer is usually the same, and the answer is food. And when I ask what kind of food, occasionally somebody will say like a donut or something. But most of the time, what's your guess? What kind of food would get people to come to a meeting? You ready? Because this is the thing, and maybe you'll say it, and this is the thing that oftentimes gets that's like this is the thing that gets said the most. Pizza. Granted, it's not like a cute margarita pizza, because come on now, that's even more expensive than just everything else in this world. So that's some pepperoni pizza, cheese pizza, veggie pizza. Hopefully margarita pizza, it's delicious. Except for basil. I'm not a basil person. You can have my basil for me. So do you want the pizza people? Do you want the person who just comes for the pizza? A lot of times everybody's like, nope. But let's think about this. First of all, you got to be strategic. Where do you put the pizza in the room? Because you've, now invested, $40. It gets you two whole pizzas or something nowadays. You got to put it in the corner of the room so everybody has to like walk all the way in. Because chances are they're going to come in and somehow they're going to have a class or they need to get to work or something like that, but they'll sign up for the emails or, you know what I mean? But the pizza person, if you can stop them, the person who just came for the pizza, if you can stop them for a second, they'll be polite. They'll listen to you for a minute before they tell you they have class. So think about that. Like, what do you say to somebody that gets them to be like, no, wait, what? And really actually want to be involved? And how do you not know that that person who was motivated by the pizza person, is not going to all of a sudden be an amazing resource, a really hard worker, really inventive, really creative, an amazing leader? I mean, they could be. And you got them involved in this based upon the fact that you enticed them with a sign that said there'd be free pizza. Do you want the pizza people? What gets you to come to the meeting? What gets you to fight for what others need? Where's the motivation? Can you see how that now there's like a theme of motivation going through this thread of these random things being said? Okay, we're leaving the pizza behind. Next one, you saw this. True or false? The bulldozers are coming. Like, think about it. Knock, 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 knock. Somebody's pounding on your door. They're saying your house is being torn down tomorrow. I don't think that's a bulldozer, but it was cuter than the bulldozer images I found. Don't judge me. If you're like, Professor Griffin, that's not a bulldozer. I don't even know what that is then. Whatever. It was cute. So, the bulldozers are coming. You're going to be out on the street tomorrow. Is far better than. So, let's take a look at this. I'm still being nerdy about words. What do we mean by better? I'm going to say we mean motivating. It's going to get you to do something. So knock, 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 pound, pound, pound. Bulldozers are coming. Your house is being torn down. We better, what's the predominant feeling, emotion that you would have if somebody came to your door and did that and said that? Fear, right? Terror. Oh, I don't want, you don't want your house, like, you don't want the place that you're living torn down. I don't want my place that I'm living torn down. That'd be terrifying. So, I mean, I guess that's technically incredibly motivating. And let's think about that. Is fear the best? Best, I'm like cringing as I say it. Is it the most effective motivator? I kind of think it might be. I don't know though. It certainly, and here's the thing. Okay, somebody knocks on your door. Bang, bang, bang. Bulldozers are coming. You know what? Tomorrow morning comes, tomorrow afternoon, the whole day goes by. No bulldozers. The whole week goes by. No bulldozers. If they come back to your door and they're like, no, no, now the bulldozers are coming, would you believe them? Or have they lost credibility? Well, I mean, last time you said, and they didn't come. You know what? 10, 12 years ago or so, I would have been like, yeah, they lied, right? I don't know now. I don't know. Do people buy into the fear even if it's not true? Are we immune from buying into fear even if it's not true? Because again, I don't want to act like, those other people that fall for it. We're all fallible. We can all become stereotypical, like we can assume about stereotypes. We can make assumptions that we don't really know what's going on. We can glom on to like one piece of information and be fearful because of it. We can let that fear rule our behaviors. Think about how this manifests in relation to gender. I think especially like to me how this manifests in a world beyond a binary, beyond just two choices of femininity and masculinity. That's a lot to wrap your head around it. You could be fearful of it. And certainly lots of people could say a lot of things about it to kind of stoke that fear. Is it motivating? Does it work? What would get you to fight for something that somebody else needs? What would get you to show up and be a volunteer. And please know, I understand not everybody is kind of activist minded. I struggle with it myself. I got to be honest with you. I'm a like sociology and women and gender studies double major. In the women's studies major that at Cal State Fullerton, I had to take a 6 unit class. And the whole premise was you do 3 units in an activism based internship, and the other 3 units was on campus, your class to had to come together and plan 4 protests on campus. And then you had to write and, analyze and everything else about like your experience. And all 4 of my papers after the various protests that we organized was like, oh, what is wrong with me? I am uncomfortable as an activist. Like, don't hand me the bullhorn. Here you go, though, I want to be a teacher. So clearly, like, I'm okay with like standing up in front of people and talking enough. But the way I got around it was like, my hand went up first and I constantly volunteered to do all the supplies, like to do all the posters, to do the flyers, to do the stuff, the tangible stuff that needed to be done. So that time, like, by the time that we got to like, who's going to be the one walking around yelling, I mean, I already had, contributed significantly. So I'm being very, very honest and I'm not proud of that. And I still struggle with it. I don't know why. But I just don't want everybody to feel like, well, yeah, now we got to go join the next protest. No. But that's how a lot of things happen. So let's take a look at becoming an activist. You got to decide what makes you mad and you got to learn voraciously about the issue. And you need to team up and find your other people and make a plan and ask for help. You got to find your other pizza people, right? And you've got to constantly be talking about the issue and educating others. And not only learning initially about the issue, but these things can be fast paced and changed quickly. And so making sure that you're always up to date to the best of your ability of staying in the know. And then to celebrate the small victories, because sometimes these aspects of fighting for social justice and fighting for social change can take a very, very long time and kind of buoying yourself in those moments where you've had a small victory. But and then, so you could see that last thing, don't give up, don't give up, don't give up. For those of you, maybe like me, that are not going to go grab the bullhorn, there's all things we can do continuously. And so what we all can do, we can do exactly what you did this semester that you did so beautifully. Learn. And you've listened to each other in discussion boards and you read our textbook and you can keep that going. And I know school is dumb and it's not inspiring always. And it kind of kills the love of learning out of you, which is really ironic. But I really, 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 really hope that you find that little spot in the world where you're like, this is something I really want to continue to learn about, that you have a passion for it, right? All those papers you've written in here and all your other classes, you're a trained writer. Sorry, that's what happened in college. Like, and you can utilize those skills. And people in elected positions, elected officials, somebody is tasked in every single one of their offices for reading every email, every letter, all those things that come through. And if something's really, really compelling, it gets brought up. Oh my gosh, this letter came today. I was totally sobbing. This woman described this situation. We didn't even realize this was going on. We got to look into this. 20 people sent letters. They're all saying that, that type of stuff. You're a trained writer. You can utilize these skills to speak out. These things, volunteering and donating, having the tough conversation when you hear somebody, think about the privilege manifesto. When you hear somebody say something that you're like, oh my gosh, having that tricky, respectful so that you don't alienate them and don't piss them off, but like trying to thread the needle of letting them know that maybe what they're saying is kind of problematic or hurtful because of, especially if you're a person who shares that same privileged identity that maybe, is in relation to the thing that they're speaking ill of. But having those tricky conversations, gosh, that can make a difference. Sociology. Sociology, I think one of the most valuable things it can do, even though it's an academic area of study, is get us to think about what's somebody else going through. What's it like for somebody who doesn't fit into the binary? What's it like for somebody who is male-bodied but constantly gets made fun of for, enjoying like feminine hobbies or something? You know what I mean? Like what would it be like? Thinking about the mask you live in and all those stories that we got to learn. Like having empathy and thinking about what somebody else is going through, not just making judgments. And then finally, and this is a privilege, right? This came up with citizenship. Not everybody gets this opportunity, and oh my goodness gracious, in the world that we are living in, who knows what the future holds. I'm not a political science professor. I can't explain the Electoral College very well or anything like that. And we can all be skeptical and be like, does our vote even count? Okay. But I will tell you, based upon being involved in school board elections in my school district for the last, between bond measures and then school board elections, I guess 10 years. Those local elections can be won or lost by a mere 164 votes type thing. Like it really, your vote really in a local election, being a knowledgeable, prepared local voter makes a huge difference, especially in relation to gender. Especially if you think about some of the ways that specifically school boards have approached gendered freedoms. Like that can really matter. And that's something that many of us can do. So as we start to wrap this up, I want to make sure that you know what the butterfly effect is. You probably know it better than I do, and I'm not going to do a good job of explaining it. But the butterfly effect, I believe it came from like a theorist or something named Edward Lorenz, who was like a mathematician and a meteorologist, like studied math and weather. And back in the, I don't know, I want to say like 1950s-ish, right? So computers are these gigantic machines. Ran this whole mathematical equation and then made this tiny minute little change to it, something, a number way past the decimal point, something like that. And ran it again, like went to lunch and came back and like there'd been a kind of big difference made in this equation based on that tiny little change that he made. And so utilize like the symbolism of weather. Think about, especially depending on the time that you're listening to this lecture, like springtime, right? Little butterflies fluttering around. When was the last time you saw a butterfly? Remember when we had a butterfly migration come through? When was that? That was cool. Butterflies are the only but are the only bugs that I'm not afraid of. I think, yeah, pretty much, right? I mean, who can begrudge a butterfly? Maybe ladybugs. Ladybugs aren't scary either. But think about that butterfly. So the whole premise is like that butterfly fluttering, the little tiny wing flutters, creates momentum in the universe that can build and build and build into like a major weather event, like a hurricane, a tornado, something like that, which technically those are damaging, but still. That idea of momentum, little actions creating momentum, that's the butterfly effect, right? And so every little thing that you can do, every conversation, every volunteer, everything that you learn, every like that it creates momentum. Now, granted, technically, it creates momentum in the other direction too if we are disparaging or discriminatory or that. But creating those moments of looking at gender differently for yourself, for your loved ones, for our community, in these little bits. Social change can be overwhelming. It can take a lifetime. But there's many things on a micro level that we can all do. And you've been doing them all semester. This is my chance with, my voice over PowerPoints to say thank you. I'll say thank you in a class announcement, but I just, thank you. Thank you for the community you created together in an asynchronous class. Thank you for your kindness and enthusiasm. Thank you for your journal entries and everything else. Thank you for your energy of exploration. Thank you for being thoughtful and working hard. It's just, I say this at the beginning, it's the joy of my life. Even though I gotta say asynchronous classes, because I don't get to connect with you quite as much, are not necessarily like the most ideal, beautiful thing for me, but I certainly see their value in a world of flexibility and full-time jobs and getting through college. It's an opportunity to get this done and to get on to who you're going to be and how amazing you already are and are going to continue to be. And so thank you for sharing that this semester. Please know it meant the world to me.